You're listening to Ka-Pow, the pop culture podcast, comics, television, movies, and more. If it impacts fan culture, we have something to say about it. And now, your hosts, Michael, Jordan, Cliff, and Seth.
It's your friends at Ka-Pow, the pop culture podcast. My name's Jordan Lowe.
Cliff Barnes.
I'm Seth.
We're back.
Yep.
Again.
Right on schedule.
What's going down?
Not too much. I had an interesting customer first thing this morning.
Okay.
It kind of ties into TV that we're going to talk about tonight.
Okay.
So a guy came in, middle-aged guy, kind of distinguished looking, nice dress pants, dressed pretty nicely. Which isn't too weird.
Hey, in this town, a guy came in with pants.
Yeah.
It's like, well, spiffy.
Okay, Mr. Big Shot.
Yeah.
Mr. Khakis. So he walked around a few minutes, just looked at a few, didn't look like he was looking for anything specific. And then he went to the back issue bin and he pulled out a copy of Y the Last Man. He's like, do you have any more of this book? I was like, I've got the collections. Oh, you do? So I showed him on the shelf where they were. So he looked, and there's a compendium that collects like 30 issues. There's the previous printings that are just real thin. There's like 10 volumes of those. And then there's the newer ones there's like 5 volumes or whatever. So like there's a couple to look through. So he's looking through the different versions of it. And he pulls out the compendium and gets the big volume one. It collects 30 issues or whatever. And he checks out without saying anything. So I'm just like, I don't know how to talk to fancy people. So I was like, so I said, I'm really looking forward to that show.
You're like trying to pull your socks up so it looks like you got pants on.
Let me go in the back and get my monocle.
Yeah, where do you get pants like that, dude? They go all the way down, huh? Wow. But no, I'd make a conversation, just said, I'm really looking forward to that show, which isn't a lie. I really am. And he said, oh, yeah, my son is going to be on it. I said, whoa, how cool is that?
I knew this guy was flashy.
Mr. Hollywood with his pants.
Oh, yeah. I suppose his son has pants, too.
So I think that's cool. His son's cast in this big show coming up. But I'm thinking, knowing the premise of this show, there's only one man in the whole.
It can only be one guy unless
so
he has a monkey for a son.
Right.
So a monkey wears pants too. No, it is about. There's only one man left in the world, so I think he's probably just got a little bit part in the pilot before the plague hits. That's
right.
Me thinking. This guy can't be that big a deal.
Yeah.
So so that's, I make an assumption and think it's cool, but how cool is it really?
Right.
He's a bit actor, whatever. So he leaves, and I look at his name on the credit card receipt, do a little Googling, and the guy's son,
everybody, customers, be aware.
Privacy.
He's Googling you.
I bought some stuff on my own with this credit card. I bought some pants. They'll never know. He buys pants all the time, I'm sure.
Like,
so it won't be suspicious.
Yeah, every freaking Friday, this guy buys a pair of pants.
So through a little bit of Googling, I find out his son is Elliot Fletcher, who is actually a trans actor. He was on Shameless for like 18, 20 episodes, so he's a known actor.
Hey, excuse me. Excuse me. Any idea who's responsible for all the anti-shelter signs?
No idea. Neighbors probably.
Not you? No. Good. I was winding up for a big old tantrum. I'm so sick of these ponies talking like they give a but then they're like, ew, homeless people.
You live around here?
I work on CERMAC, Children of the Night. It's a center for at-risk youth. Some of those kids have no place to live, so I'm the mouthy asshole who tries to place them. Trevor.
Ian.
Which one's the shelter?
And he, according to the articles I saw, he's going to be series regular named Sam Jordan. And one article I saw said he was York's best friend, and another article said it was Hero's best friend, who was York's sister.
Right.
And then IMDb says it only lists him in one episode. So I really don't. I mean, no one knows. The show hasn't premiered yet, so we don't know.
They might be keeping it.
But
secret.
yeah, there were several articles talking about, casting a trans actor in a trans role. That's still a big deal.
I would actually be surprised if it was one episode, because that's the only way you're really going to be able to have male characters on there. Yeah. So that's clever.
So yeah, like I said, there was a lot out there about this actor. So even if it is just a small part, he's making headlines and making news, because that's still odd. And it's been long enough since I've read the book. I don't remember them dealing with any kind of trans issues or.
I don't know. I've read it 50 times, but I can't remember.
I mean, I read a quote from this guy, and he said, they're not going to gloss over that there will be, in the aftermath of this, anyone with a Y chromosome, except for York and his monkey, dies, right? So that's the plot of the whole show. We're not spoiling anything. Yeah. But that says the show is going to draw a distinction between your chromosomes and your gender. There will be male characters, and it sounds
like good they waited this long to make the show. That they can do it properly.
But it said he won't even, like in the comic. I remember he had to wear a mask everywhere, because if you saw a man. What?
Was it fumigator? We were just talking about the last episode.
I just say you had to wear pants everywhere too. But so if you saw a man, he says in this world, if you see a man, you just assume they're trans, rather than the vice versa of the last 1,000 years. You assume everyone is cis. Yeah. So it's there'll be interesting things to delve into on here. Like I said, however big the part is. I think it will deal with those issues a lot more than the comic ever did. Which, no slam on the comic. It was just 20 years ago. It was a little bit different time in pop culture.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Madam President, power plants will start to shut down.
Which city? All of them.
Somewhere is the answer to how this all happened and how we fix it. Who are you?
Yorick.
You're reproductively interesting.
Wow. Okay.
People are gonna have to pick sides. They are hungry. Angry. Terrified. We will rebuild together.
So looking up this guy, the father who came in is pretty well known as well, which I didn't realize. John DeMita. He is a seasoned voice actor as well as screen and stage. His IMDb credits were hundreds long of a ton of anime. He was in Naruto for dozens of episodes and a lot of video games and lots of cartoons. So just a long career in voice acting. Apparently, he is serving as the Schwartz Leader in Residence this year at Marietta College. So he was on campus this weekend, actually tonight as we record, an evening with John DeMita. It was like the community, it was free, open to the community. You could come in and ask questions and talk to the guy. So the theater department is going to do a year-long initiative offering classes about voice acting. So they're going to do either the acting side of it or the technical side and the engineering, how to run the microphones and all that stuff. So he is going to be the artist in residence to help out and lead that. And he's going to work over Zoom with the kids through the fall and the spring semesters, and then he's going to come back to campus in the spring to continue in person. So Marietta has a pretty robust theater department, so that seems like a pretty cool thing. Voice acting, the number of animated series that have debuted in the last decade or so is huge. So it's got to be a bigger field than it's ever been. So that's pretty cool to have someone that renowned helping out the local kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet all the local stores downtown start carrying pants too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the moral of the story is put some pants on, go to Asylum, buy a book, use your credit card. You may be profiled on the next episode.
Yeah.
So I start the too long did not read version is saw a man in pants, stalked him online
to find out what the story was.
Was impressed.
Yeah.
Headline: Why the Last Man is an actual show. It's coming out September 13th. FX on Hulu. We've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah, we don't know if it'll hold up, but if they'll pull it off. But I'm interested to see whatever version we can finally get. But go back to the core, the original where it started, and get the straight stuff. Go down to Asylum and buy one of these big compendiums or whatever of why, because it's good.
Hulu's been ripping off some good content. You know, some good original shows here in the last couple years. Some mini series and stuff. So, like, we hardly ever watch anything on Netflix anymore. Hulu's
I'm canceled again until the next thing pops up. I watch whatever I need. Cancel.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it a month at a time now.
I'm curious to watch that Bob Ross documentary that just debuted, but that's about the only thing I've seen on there in a while.
Alicia's watching right now. I think it's a Hulu original. Something called Nine Perfect Strangers or something like that. It's got Nicole Kidman and Bobby Cannavale. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't watched.
So, anyways, well, anything else before we get into all this television we've been watching the last?
I don't think so. I think that's about as good an anecdote as we are capable of doing.
Probably so.
Let's roll right into it.
Well, if we're talking Hulu, this is probably my favorite show in the last long while. Reservation Dogs just premiered on there.
Act normal.
Y'all wouldn't have seen a stolen food truck, would you?
No.
Oh. Someone stole the truck. Broad daylight.
Put your seatbelt on. Seatbelt?
People safety.
We're stealing a chip truck.
I do not give a shit, man. Put your seatbelt on. We're not going.
Jesus. Go!
Apparently it was full of chips. I've never seen anything like that.
You're good thieves. Best in town.
Oh, thank you.
It is a small town.
That's just how I like it. Tell your friends.
I don't have any.
Go get some then.
Okay. We could be in California as soon as 2 months.
California, here we come.
You and your buggy-ass friends. What are you gonna fight for? I just with you.
No,
I've watched the first 2 or 3. I'm not totally caught up.
There are 4 as we speak.
Okay, that was going to be my question.
I think I've watched 3 because I've
only
watched
seen the
week.
first one. So I think
So this is written and co-produced by Taika Waititi, who we have been on the Taika Waititi bandwagon.
Since day
forever, since day one, really. And
drop the beat. Yeah.
Wait, save it for 300. And co-written and produced with Sterling Harjo, who is a Native American writer and director, has made a couple documentaries and a couple features. It is set in Oklahoma, 4 young kids on an Indian reservation, and the cast and crew is almost 100% Native, which again is a rarity on TV these days. I remember Resident Alien on Sci-Fi Channel. It's set in the Pacific Northwest, and it had 3 or 4 cast members who were Native American. I remember pointing that out that it was surprising because normally if you got any representation, it was just the one maybe one character, but to have a whole family of natives on the show was different. So this is set in their world, and I felt like it's nothing like the show, but it gave me almost the vibes of Atlanta, the Donald Glover show, of like it's so specific to its place and its people, and it's the little details and the restaurants they go to and the fashion and the slang they use. Like it's just so specific, and that's what it reminded me of that. And it
has, I mean, totally that, and a small portion is it has that FX look.
Sure, yeah. But yeah, it has just hit me. It's a comedy, but it's got some dramatic elements to it. I love the cast. The kids are really endearing, and it's got that Taika Waititi fingerprint on it of like the kids. They're rough on the outside, but they're really sweet on the inside, and they're all dealing with daddy issues or missing fathers, which runs through a lot of his work. So yeah, I've really enjoyed what I've seen so far, and it seems to be just starting. So
yeah. That first episode when they steal the chip truck, cracked me up. And then towards the end of the episode, the guy they stole it from is in the store or the restaurant or whatever where they're all hanging out. And talking about it getting stolen and stuff, and they were just kind of sitting there like, oh, it was relatable. It's good. It's so funny. My kids have, they've been on this TikTok thing since it started, and I refused to get on it for the longest time, but eventually it gets us all. And one of the
TikTok.
And one of the first like sides of TikTok I ran into that was like flooding my feed was like native talk, which is just first peoples, Native Americans, indigenous, whatever you want to call them. And there's a guy on there, his handle's like Modern Warrior or something. And we talk about wokeness and stuff so much now, but I've been watching a lot of like his tiny little 3-minute videos or whatever. And just like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I like, you don't always realize just how much offensive stuff is out there, and people get really ticked off at him for him calling them out and calling us out. But it's been really good and educational. And I even had mentioned it, like when I first found it, I even mentioned something to my high school freshman daughter, and she was like, oh yeah, I know that guy, I watch him all the time. And I was just like, good, I'm glad you are. So it's a good show though.
That's cool.
Love the ghost of the old warrior is horse stepped in a gopher hole. So like that, it deflates some of those like, my people are proud, right? That sort of thing. Yeah. It's just we're all just people.
Just like, people.
Yeah. We never talked about Dave ending. I don't think the second season of Dave.
Another good Hulu original.
Yeah, may have started off a little slow in the second season, but I thought season 2 was definitely not the letdown that I was anticipating. Like, I really enjoyed the second season. I was very impressed.
It really took us for a ride.
Just him having to deal with his fame and his neuroses attached to it, and it was just and he was still that guy. He was still Dave the whole time. Not unattached to how he treated people and things like that, and it culminating in the end. Who is Dave? When we get that, and I loved it. It's still one of my absolute favorite shows of all time. Honestly, like. It is amazing.
Yeah, and to have a character with that amount of ego and will just say I'm the best of all time. That like it's hard to make someone like that likable. So giving him these neuroses and like this, and knowing that he is co-writing it and helping, he's seeing his, pointing out his own flaws and foibles. So it's definitely a complicated character, not always likable, but it was such a triumphant ending. Like you want that happy ending too.
Yeah, so good, and just the episodes each by themselves, some were odd, but I still like each one had something that I loved about it, and I loved the flashback Mountain Dew thing. I loved.
How's it going? You guys are here for the Mountain Dew pitch, right? You can sit. I figured it all out. Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew. Drink, chug, do, everyone. Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew. What would you do to do what you want? It's done. Did you have a good time listening to everybody's silly ideas about soda? Oh man, party's over, this the closer. Let me just demonstrate this further. Just imagine there's a commercial and there's a rapper about your work and he's all like, Jill, would you like a Mountain Dew? Steph, would you like a Mountain Dew? Jeff, would you like a Mountain Dew? Steve, I don't know about you, I'm just kidding with Jeff. Look at the can, look at me dance, look at the man, Jeff. I'm looking pretty on brand. They got supply, well, this is the man, Jeff. The kids will post this on the gram, tag all their friends. By the end of the night, they'll be like, Sprite who? We make up a dance? Man, where does it end? You're not gonna try to overthink it, it's a motherfucking drink, so just put it in the can, great time. By the way, hi, I'm Dave. While I have your attention, I sit over there in the cube in the pit. I'm a genius, I should probably get more ops. Underutilized as fuck, but I guess today it stops. Maybe not, it depends if management can open their eyes a little. I'm just messing, Steven, but clearly I'm a leader of thought, no? Look what I've done. Okay, I'm done. You can stop it. You can stop the music. Stop the music.
I like the where he goes to the producer, and gosh, why can't I think of his name? Rick, what's his last
Rubin.
name? Yeah, Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
That whole thing was great, and the ending of that episode was so good, and it's just an excellent show, and the whole Chuck storyline. I liked all
it got
that
weird.
Stuff. It was so good though. Gata's response was like, we all go to heaven.
Not enough Gata for me this season, but that final episode made up for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they know what they're doing, and I can't wait for season 3. So I really wanted to touch on that. Are you guys? Well, I don't know if there's anything else on Hulu that you guys want to talk about, but
I don't think so.
Are you caught up, Cliff, on Ted Lasso? Did you see today?
Oh my gosh! Yes.
Did you see today? Okay, yes. Well, let's do that real quick. I don't think you're not even watching it, are you, Jordan? So Apple, do some Apple here, yeah.
Yeah.
Ted Lasso season 2. I want to tell you, I was pretty scared about season 2 because I loved season 1. We saw the preview they put out, a month or two before it came out, and I hated the preview. It was like in the snippets of his jokes without context sound really bad.
We definitely talked about this on an episode earlier when that came out, that trailer.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I love this show so much.
It's so good.
It has just every episode is so great. I love the writing, and we focused a lot on Ted on that first season, of course. Introductions and giving you the real, the central character and the feel, his storyline, the feel of what the show was going to be. But man, I really do like season 2. I love that they've expanded as shows should, but expanded on these secondary, characters, that, and showing his effect on their life, but then also how they've affected each other's life. The secondary characters themselves.
It's such a feel-good show. I mean, they're always going for the feel-good.
Yes, it's a positive message.
Yeah, it's very positive. It borders on. I mean, the only criticism I could have for it is it's unrealistically feel good.
Yeah.
Some of it, but I do like, they are taking it to more serious things as they go. While they have Roy Kent is the breakout of this season.
He's
he was good.
Here,
good
he's there,
season.
he's everywhere. Roy Kent.
He's the breakout, but he's a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Like, he really is unreal.
But he's such a great television character in the fact that, I saw somebody describe him as the perfect version of mean but kind.
Right, yeah, he's not nice, but he's kind. But but also taking, even at the end of this episode, taking it to such a serious level at the end. Mm-hmm. It's a great show. It's a feel good show. You know that if bad things happen, somehow they're going to work out through kindness. And my favorite reference of this season was in this episode when she calls and he gets his voicemail, and he goes, wait for the beep. You got to leave your name. You got to leave your number. And I was like, Crazy Calls. The original from Crazy Calls. I don't even remember that. But in the 80s or whatever, they had you could buy a tape put for your answering machine.
Yes. Hey, how are you? Sorry that I'm not at home. But when I get the message on my telephone, you'll be the first one on my list.
Crazy Calls, a tape of 7 different songs and funny recordings for answering machines.
I am very sorry that I'm not at home to take your call.
Only $14.95.
When I will get right back to you. Leave your message at the tone.
Give someone the gift of gab for their answering machine.
Calling a friend. What you've actually done is...
And the only other one I remember, like that one definitely was probably the star. But I remember there was a bunch on there, I think. Honestly, you should drop some of them in here. But the only other I remember is Nobody's Home.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody's Home. It was for your answering machine. Pre-voicemail. But I love that is so Ted Lasso to sing that as his voicemail.
Such a wonderful show that I really feel like fills a hole right now that we need filled. Focusing on it's fun and silly and very joyful at times, but yet they focus on mental health. They focus on on men not being toxic or changing, for the better or
having what do they call them, the dog,
the Diamond Dogs.
The Diamond Dogs, yeah. Like trying to, dealing with their issues and things, and just how they, build each other up. Him telling the Nathan or whatever, no, he's like telling him to argue with him and not give in to his stuff and everything. Just all of that's great. Of course, there was the Christmas episode in August.
My favorite one.
Was so crazy, a Christmas episode, but there's so many references. It really pays off how much television and movies I've watched. It's like there's a bazillion references, and then the rom-communism episode. Just like there's like through the whole thing, all these.
The Christmas episode was definitely a highlight of season 2. I think it's the best episode, the best single episode they've done.
It was good. It's one of the best ones, but I don't know if I could say what my favorite one was.
Well, like, I've watched...
It's probably the best of season 2, yeah, I agree.
I've watched enough Doctor Who and enough Doctor Who's Christmas specials to say I have somewhat of an understanding, somewhat of a feeling of, like, British Christmas.
Mm.
And I've, and they did it so well. And I don't know. Christmas is always fun for me, but...
The whole...
having
Love
the team,
Actually,
the whole Love Actually thing, and then having all these players from different countries come over to the general manager or whatever he is, the vice president of the team or whatever he is, and seeing his home life because he's such a kind of a dorky character that's almost at times, at least in I think season 1, they played him off to be a little.
That's his real wife.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah, I think so. The guy, yeah, because at the where he like is with the girl in blue. She wore blue. You know, they're doing the whole. Yeah, that's his real wife.
Yeah, it's. I have a hard time finding a fault in this show as a whole. I will probably go back and watch both seasons again, just because I've enjoyed it so much. Good. Yeah, really.
So yeah, Jordan, you're gonna have to someday watch some Ted Lasso. I'm sure you're just like annoyed because you've heard so much about it.
Well, no, I just like I'm seeing a dozen think pieces of Ted Lasso is the show we need right now, and all the stuff you're saying. How did we go from the early 2000s and every sitcom character was sarcastic,
right,
and toxic and cynical to this like loving, hopeful, kind of show?
Yeah.
Like the world's gotten worse, or maybe our TV characters are getting better. I don't know.
Yeah, I posted a retweet the other day of just somebody, I don't even know who it was on Twitter that had pointed out. In a world where we don't have a Mr. Rogers, in a world where we don't have a Bob Ross, like you were talking about, that really exist in celebrity today, we have Ted Lasso. It's great.
It's totally an equivalent of those characters.
Yeah. And it melded into actual sports. My fandom of the Cincinnati Reds, where it's Joey Votto's favorite show, my favorite player. And
there you go.
His manager called him Roy
Kent. He's totally
as the guy at the end of his career, and he's like, "I'm not Roy Kent. I'm Jamie Turk." Like that whole, like it sparked him to like, "I'm the young stud on this team. You can't call me Roy."
That's funny. Yeah, he's totally a Roy Kent.
And it had a little twist there in that last episode that I did not see coming. I thought it was going to go one way, and it went a different way with the team owner, and I was like, because right before it happened, I even said something to my wife. I was like, "Oh, you realize who she's texting, right?" Because they totally set it up, and then turned and took a left turn there. I was like, "Okay, all right, I'm down for this."
So, before we just tell everybody any more of what happened on Ted Lasso, they need to watch it. Have you watched any of that, Mr. Corman? The new Joseph Gordon-Levitt show on Apple.
No, I have not watched that. Not yet.
I've watched. There's been 5 episodes, 4 or 5 episodes. So I think 4 maybe. I watched today's also, but it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He kind of took a break from acting there for a while. He had some kids and stuff, and just took a step back.
Enjoyed some of that Third Rock from the Sun money.
Oh yes, he's still getting it. Yeah. I heard an interview with him talking about that. He actually still gets money. But
it's still on. They play it on, I think, IFC like blocks at a time. I flipped past one day and it was like the Super Bowl episode.
Wow.
They had an episode that aired after the Super Bowl with like a bunch of supermodels. Had Elle McPherson and all these like famous 90s supermodels. I'm like, wow, this show was a thing.
It really was. Can't get enough French Stewart.
Yeah. Juggernaut.
So anyway, it's his name in the show is Josh Corman, and it's just very close to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and it's kind of how he described it, because it's about this public school teacher in San Fernando Valley, but it's kind of him looking at what an alternate timeline of what his life could have been if he never made it as an actor, if he just had aspirations but it never panned out, which happens to the vast majority of people in his position. And hey, he probably would have been a school teacher, and this is what his life might have been like, and this guy's got major anxiety and things, and it's just a show dealing with that. He stars in it. I believe he directs it also, and it has a lot of static camera shots, letting the actors act instead of doing a million cuts. But it's interesting. I won't say it's fantastic, but it gets imaginative. Like he will just kind of, all of a sudden a scene will go a little bit Scott Pilgrim every once in a while, or his anxiety of the world coming to the end. You might see a meteor coming towards Earth, and he's the only one that experiences that feeling, and but it's there's already been an episode so far that just totally focused on his roommate instead of him. Some shows have been doing that, skipping around the characters in the show. But so far, I'm enjoying it. I want to see where it goes. It's not, a must-see, I wouldn't say, but it's a good show. I am enjoying it. We'll see where it goes. But that's Mr. Corman.
I was just cleaning up some of my notes. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that we never got around to talking to or whatever, so I've deleted a bunch of old stuff we never got to. And one of them was a documentary Alex Winter actor, Bill and Ted actor made, called Showbiz Kids.
Oh, yeah.
A lot like that Kid 90 thing of like talking to kids in the showbiz industry or whatever. But I'd written down a stat that said 20,000 auditions a year for kid actors, and like 5% of them actually book jobs. So that this idea is very relevant of like, making it on the third rock from the sun was an astronomical odds for him. So it could have very easily gone the other way. So
yeah, he talked about it was on Mark Maron and him talking just about his mom driving him to auditions, but how his parents never pushed him. They were like very supportive, I guess, about he was the one saying, no, I really do want to keep trying. So that's all I have for Apple.
I did see over on Peacock they canceled Punky Brewster. I was a little disappointed.
I never did watch any of that.
You just got one season?
Just one. She didn't have enough Punky power in her 40s, apparently.
Oh, no Punky.
Sold. Punky's canceled.
I was waiting. Like, oh, come on, bring it.
It's the only reason I brought it up.
Bring it. Yeah. Bring it up again, Cliff. We'll lament it. We'll lament the cancellation again someday. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is back, finally. 8th season, I believe. We knew it was coming. We knew that there would be some sort of change after all of the things that have happened in the last couple years.
Yeah, it's got a different vibe to it. Yeah,
hugely different vibe. Wow, it's jarring at first. Then they kind of back off of it a little bit. They really address the police culture, and I mean,
yeah,
there's been a lot of criticism of it, of course, but it was interesting to see how they handled it, and just even Jake having to look at himself,
especially a character like that who is just
bravado,
personified.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I mean, if you're a fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I came to it late when it returned. It had got canceled, and when it returned, I burnt through the whole thing and really enjoyed it. It's a little silly at times, and even this season is when it gets too silly, I kind of check out and I'm on my phone. But it's fine. You can tell it's late. It needs to end soon. I'd say that's probably it for the show.
I like the sillier parts though. The whole thing of when they go to the cabin to try to reconnect Holt and his husband, and like Terry, Terry goes on ledges, and Terry's ledges, and if you know anything about me, it's that I like to hedge. You can't hedge and ledge at the same time.
My least favorite character on there is Terry Crews. I can't stand him, so that's always been a letdown for me as him. But I like the old guys. I love. I can't think of anybody's name. What's
Hitchcock and Scully?
Yeah, I like them. But who's the little guy?
Charles Boyle. Joe Trulia.
Yes, I like him.
Hey,
HBO.
you know what? Oh, go ahead.
Scott, I just cut you off. HBO shows. We finished The White Lotus.
Yeah. Did you guys like it?
I really liked it.
You really liked it? I don't know what I feel about that show.
I liked it. I loved the guy that ran the hotel. That actor was awesome.
Yeah, he was really good.
Awesome. He was excellent. I loved that. I loved the message of just. I will admit that the last episode was a little disjointed feeling, but I loved the ending message that they, because the show, if you haven't watched it, is about these, these pretty ultra rich people going to this resort in Hawaii that is just like, astronomical prices for the rooms, and you go there and stay for whatever, and they just are so absorbed with themselves.
Yeah.
And it has a little Downton Abbey feel because you get the staff's perspective. Not enough of that, I don't think, but just their lives and how they just are so absorbed with themselves, which we all are, but we like to act like the rich are the only ones who are. But the message that even the people that think that they are, this is the thing, people like woke people is a good example.
Yeah.
They like to be pointed at, say, oh yeah, but you also do this. And, everybody still has their things that they get away with because of who they are. So just like the wife of Jake, whatever his name is, really, but the young couple that she's like, oh, I've lost my career and all this, and how she still can't hold on to it at the end. She's still exactly that.
Oh, I was so disappointed.
I mean, that's it. Everybody in the show, all these people, all just don't learn anything. None of them learn anything. They have these messages shoved in their face. A perfect opportunity to learn something. A guy has Steve has a brush with death. You get this shock where you're like, I'll never go back to being the way I was, basically. And everybody just always goes back to the way they always were. The young daughter and her friend reading all these, intellectual books, but they just go back to the way they were. All good. I did like the idea of like the son maybe making a break for it.
Right. Yeah, he really was the only one that kind of, there was something positive there with, because I'll never know the guy's name. I will always call him Plop, but he was that.
That's it. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's Plop.
He was so terrible and
so unlikable.
Oh, I could not
But
stand
for that
him.
guy who has been likable in everything else he's been in, I was impressed by him because he was extra unlikable.
Yeah. And then pairing him with Molly Shannon.
Yeah.
It was great. But
the perfect level of, she wasn't like somebody unlikable.
No, super nice.
But just, what are you doing there?
Yeah.
It's a good show. This is why I keep my HBO. It's like they keep dropping these shows, that are of the quality level that I like. I mean, of course, you always want the prestige TV, but at least they're putting out these shows that are very interesting and they have something to say. This is Mike White wrote this and directed it. I think he's he's done other things, but it was I like his, how he came up. I like the idea of coming up with this. But
shout out to Uncle Rico. Once he showed up, I couldn't take my eyes off of him. I was just that
Uncle
guy.
Rico.
Yeah, Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh yeah. He was in something else too that I saw that I forgot he was in. But yeah, he just. Everything was about them not learning the lessons that were being shoved in their face. So that was good. It was a good idea. And I'm curious what they'll do with a second season.
Yeah.
What else was on? Hard Knocks is back. I love that theme song. Got to get me some of that. Anyway, this year it's the Dallas Cowboys.
I watched a few minutes of the first episode, most of it. It was Hard Knocks. It was fun.
It's been my least favorite season so far. So as far as like, I really usually enjoy these, no matter who it is. I've always enjoyed the behind the scenes of it, and
they make a star out of somebody.
You get to know the players, the rookies and stuff, and you really start to like them. And you want, you're like,
you root for them.
Yeah, I enjoy that, and just seeing the behind the scenes, making these people real people. So I always enjoy that. but less this season. I don't know. It's just not. Yeah. I don't like the kick-ins to the theme song. I don't think they're not building them up good enough to drop in. They're no. It's no Oakland Raiders.
Well,
I will suggest this last episode 3. I think there's only 5 episodes.
Yeah, they're short.
They just do preseason, but episode 3, towards the very beginning, they do a drone shot of their practice facility in Frisco, Texas, and it's impressive. It's really cool to watch. I don't know. I'd like to know how many times it took them to do it, but it's just a drone shot flying into that whole thing that they have built there. Like they basically built their own town, and they fly a drone through the whole thing, and they've got it choreographed for when it enters different places, and it's worth just watching that. So I highly recommend that. As far as just watching, it gets into some pretty tight spaces, and I was impressed by it. So that's worth watching and not watching the rest.
As far as HBO Max goes, season 3 of Titans, DC's, based on their Teen Titans property, is currently ongoing. I think I've watched them all so far. I think we're up to episode 4. It's been very up and down. Some really good stuff, really good character-based stuff, and some stuff that I have just been like, this is a huge plot hole or too silly or whatever.
I haven't heard a lot of chatter, like previous seasons, people would be talking about it. I haven't really heard anybody talking about this 3rd season.
Well,
and it should be easier. More people have HBO than ever had the DC app.
Right,
so it should be easier to find.
Yeah. I don't know how many have went back and watched the first 2 seasons. I really like season 2. I enjoyed it. This season is all about the Jason Todd Red Hood character. And he's just not likable in any way. Like
Jason Todd.
Yeah, it's Jason Todd, and the kid that plays him is, he does well with the character, but he's just so annoying as Robin, and then he's, ultra bad guy as selfish, Red Hood. But there's some good stuff in there. We finally get to see some good Nightwing costume fighting, and there's some really good stuff. Episode 2, or maybe it was episode 2 or 3 with Hawk and Dove. We see the fate of Hank, really good actor who's been in some DC stuff before. But he was probably my favorite character on the show. So some good stuff there, but we get a lot of a Scarecrow and Dr. Crane stuff in there, which is pretty good. It's an interesting take on him. He has been locked up in Arkham by Batman and has become like stoner guy to kind of, I don't know, calm himself and his thoughts and stuff. So some interesting stuff there and how it developed so far, but that's happening over there. And then finally, the last thing I had on HBO was a couple weeks ago, my wife, one of her best friends, it was like I don't know, it was a weekend night. We were all home, and her husband had to work that night. So she brought her daughter over, who is friends with my daughter and have been since I think they were 2. But we were just kind of sitting around, drinking a few beers and looking for something to watch. And Deanna shares an affinity for trashy reality TV, Seth. And I was like, oh, let me show you.
I'm offended, I think. Trashy reality TV, Seth.
Well, I just meant reality TV in general.
Okay.
But she especially likes the trashy, you could name 100 different shows. Those
Desperate Housewives or something.
No, more like all the dating ones with where they're on like an island or whatever. And I was like, let me show you what HBO's rocking right now. So we watched they made me, I started it as a joke, and then they made me watch 2 hours of FBoy Island.
Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to watch any of that.
With Nikki Glazer, comedian. She's really funny.
I couldn't tell if it was an actual reality show or if it was like a comedic spoof on reality show.
I think it was real.
Is it both?
I think it was real fake.
Yeah, it was real fake. That's a good way of putting it. And like, we had a really enjoyable time watching this show and laughing at it and making fun of it.
You watched it in the spirit it was intended.
Yes, indeed. Then a couple days later, I saw Michael down at Free Comic Book Day. And,
I see the segue.
I knew if anybody knew what I was going to be talking
Speaking
about.
Speaking of F-boys.
Yeah. And so surprise, Michael was way further into it. I think maybe he'd watched the whole season by the time I talked to him, but we got a good laugh out of that. It is ridiculous.
He doesn't have time to watch anything else. But
no, but he can watch him and Christy are watching FBoy Island over there. The premise of the show, it's a dating show. There are 3 women who bachelorette style have a whole bunch of men. They're on an island, and half of the men are nice guys and half of them are F-boys, and they have to decide, kind of who they like and try and find a nice guy, I guess. I don't even know. And then as they eliminate contestants, the men don't go home. They're sent off to the night. They have to say if they're a nice guy or an F-boy. If they're a nice guy, they get sent off to a resort, and if they're an F-boy, they get sent off into like this little fenced off
paddock, like they're Jurassic Park animals or something.
No. It's just like, it's a really terrible.
Tase them in there. Get in there, F-boy.
Poke at them. Yeah. But they have to stay where
they remember.
That's how they attack too. F-boy comes right at you. Well, another one.
Yes.
Right there by your, yeah.
You can feel him breathing on you.
Clever F-boy.
So yeah, we watched a bit of that. I made a point. I made a little note to myself. I was like, I gotta talk about FBoy Island.
There's your title.
It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. So
I watched something kind of like that on HBO.
Okay.
Catch and Kill, the podcast tapes. The Harvey Weinstein expose.
Okay.
I don't know that I could recommend this, but I found the subject interesting. It's Ronan Farrow, the journalist and son of Mia Farrow, who has HBO had that documentary, Allen v. Farrow, and that whole ordeal of living with Woody Allen for some time. So I think Ronan has a soft spot for these kind of stories about powerful people exploiting others. So I don't really care in the scandal and the Weinstein stuff and the dirty details, but I was pretty interested to hear, because Ronan's the one who broke this story in the New Yorker, but he was an employee of NBC at the time. So he was doing all this research and gathering all this information and talking to all these witnesses, and then took it to his bosses at NBC, and they're like, we can't do this. So he had to go somewhere else to do this. So I've always been interested in that story and why that was, and why NBC he had all these facts and all this information and they wouldn't go with it. So was it, did Weinstein get to them in some way, or were they just cowards and just didn't want to ruffle any feathers? But I found that kind of stuff really interesting. So that's basically what this was. It's just a series of podcast interviews that Farrow did with some of the people he interviewed, some of his editors at the magazine, and just different people who were there over the years, chronicling this whole thing, right? and the up to the publishing of the article, which basically launched the whole Me Too movement and started, where we are today, basically. But just that whole idea of how this was just a quote unquote open secret in Hollywood, like everyone knew Weinstein did this and was a monster, but he got away with it because he was rich and powerful, and you can't make him mad or your career will be in jeopardy.
Right.
So
it was definitely the worst kept secret of Hollywood for years and years.
So, who gained by covering it all up, or at least not rocking the boat and just letting him stay in power and that kind of stuff. And it was also a good reminder in this era of fake news and people maybe not believing what they hear in the media, that the real difference between bad journalism, which is that cronyism of like, somebody at NBC probably called Weinstein to let him know ahead of time this was coming out and that kind of deal, or not publishing something because you don't want to get sued, or you don't want to get in this guy's crosshairs. That's bad journalism. That's what we should be mad about. Versus what Ronan actually did is good journalism, which is pursuing the truth, no matter where it leads or who it hurts, in power, and also the amount of work that went into this, triple checking every source was checked and checked and checked again. And, these kind of articles don't get written just like, what I heard Harvey Weinstein's a bad guy. Like, this was years in the making, crossing every T, dotting every I. So that's how journalism works. Like, you don't just fly off the handle and say random stuff. Maybe a pundit, an opinion person on cable news can do that, but actual journalism is much more important and sacred than that. So this was just a little bit of a reminder of that. Maybe not a happy story, but an interesting one, some recent Hollywood history.
Yeah, I thought about watching it. I might catch up to it someday. Is that it for HBO?
I think that's it for HBO.
What? Before I canceled Netflix, I watched a couple things. I watched Never Have I Ever. Season 2 started, and I had never watched season 1. That's that Mindy Kaling created show.
I watched most of season 1. My daughter watched it.
Yeah, it was. I had not seen it. I remember it getting good reviews, and I would never be able to pronounce everyone's name on it, but it has a pretty good cast, and I enjoyed it. I thought I'll, watch the first season and that second season that had just come out, and it's about basically a first generation Indian American family, starring this teenage girl who,
as in from India,
right?
Yes,
right. And her father had died when she was, a little bit younger, and and there's some tension with her mom, and just a typical teenager stuff. But each episode kind of has like never have I ever done this, and at the beginning, and it's about that, and it's funny. It's got, like I said, it's a good cast. If you're looking for just a modern, sitcom-y teenage show that's actually pretty clever, and I think she's talented. I believe we'll see more of her. Like she does such a good job that she, she definitely, I won't say she carries the show because there's a lot of good people in it, but a lesser actress, they wouldn't have survived. I think she'll become something in the future. But I think it's good. It didn't blow me away, but I was happy I watched it. I think you guys would like it over there, Cliff. I think Carly would like it. Carly could come out of her room for that one.
Carly has watched it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And the other thing I watched was one of those like documentary things, Untold, from the Untold series, Malice at the Palace. Did you see that pop up? Do you remember this sports story? I was like this 30 for 30s, and they don't really do them anymore. But this is that type of thing. It's just like an in-depth retelling through documentary footage and interviews of the brawl that happened where Ron Artest went into the crowd in 2004. It was the Pacers against the Detroit Pistons, which, those are a couple notoriously aggressive teams.
I remember. Well, I remember that happening. I remember when it went down. But I don't know. I didn't realize they had made a documentary about it.
It's not long, and I recommend it in the fact that you remember it, but you don't know all the details, and they do. That I like that they really went into. Okay, yes, the flash of what happened, and all these guys went in the crowd and yada yada. But this takes and actually examines what each of the players was going through in that time. What the background was.
Assault charges came out of that. Yeah.
On both sides. Yeah. The crowd also. And they just it breaks down what each player was going through, the tension between the teams, the history of things and everything, and what built up to this, what actually happened, a lot of slow-mo footage and things, and just what each player was doing during the thing and what the crowd members were doing. And it's well done and interesting and narrated by Reggie Miller. And, the poor guy, at this time, this is as good as the Pacers had ever been. Yeah. And this destroyed them. Mm-hmm. This was the end of his career and his best chance these couple of years to finally get a ring. Reggie Miller was amazing. Yep. He finally had a cast of players around him, and this pretty much ruined everything. And so I love this kind of stuff where it's something you remember, but you're getting context. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was spectacular. So if you like those things, if you like The Last Dance, about the Bulls, this is a shorter, tight story about one specific event that is good. Anybody watch anything on Netflix?
I don't think so.
All right.
Which leads us to Disney Plus.
Ooh.
And some good stuff on Disney Plus. Anybody watch the second episode of The Mandalorian Gallery?
I did not. I haven't watched any of that.
It's watched it this evening. Heard a lot of people talking about it, as seems to be the case with this show. So this episode was all about the finale episode with Mark Hamill and, bringing back Luke Skywalker at the end of the season.
Very controversial.
Yes. Excellent episode. A lot of good interview time with Mark and just about his performance, about, how he felt about bringing Luke Skywalker back and how to do it. Of course, good Filoni stuff. But there's it's a lot of Favreau and him and Peyton Reed, who directed the episode, talking about, it's a lot of more of that, what Star Wars means to different people, different generations, continuing on the legacy and that stuff. Really nice interview moment when Jon Favreau is talking about, as they're filming the Luke stuff, and he says, I was fine with it. We'd been through the process, and then all of a sudden he said for him, R2 comes rolling behind Luke, and he says, I lost it. I had a moment, here I am knowing what's going to happen, seeing all this behind the scenes, knowing how we do it. And he's like, there I was, a kid again. And just, that feeling of what it means to, all of us and the fans and stuff. So pretty neat stuff. A lot of good, really interesting detail on talking about how they, the process of them, their decision making on how they were going to do the de-aging. And what technology was available and what they could use for it. Talks about they've hired that new deep. I think we mentioned this. The deep fake guy ILM hired and his process, showing how they kind of locked him in a room and with his computer set up and he's just they went through all of this Mark Hamill, original Star Wars footage, but then interviews from that time and commercials, and then doing the audio, mixing the audio from his voice at the, in the early 80s from radio dramas from Star Wars that he did and some other, interviews and stuff, and just how it all came about, and then showing Mark in the, he is in the a much older version of Luke Skywalker, but in that same outfit, and how they did that, and then they showed the body double, the other actor that they chose, and how they chose him. It was really a lot of good stuff. And it touched a lot on all of them, how they kept it secret for so long, for a year and a half or over a year and a half or whatever it was, and how they were able to do that because other stuff leaked out. We knew about Boba Fett. We knew about some of the other casting of the actors, or what was going to happen, or who everything but Luke. And they had set it up where even in the script, it described the Jedi that was going to come was going to be Plo Koon from the prequels. And Filoni's talking about, well, that's my favorite Jedi, and everybody knows that's my favorite Jedi. So if this were to leak, and here's concept art of using that character for this, he's like, we did renderings, we did special effects on what it would look like, all in anticipating that if something leaked out, it was going to be this and not what was happening with Mark Hamill, because they did all the Mark Hamill stuff in one day. They had one day. They were like, this is it. Small crew. Pretty interesting stuff. So I watched that. Came out today. I highly recommend that again. If you haven't watched any of that gallery series. And then we got to talk about What If. We got 3 episodes of What If. Marvel's What If series with The Watcher. And
I did not know what to expect from this show.
And
I'm still not sure. Like, I'm shocked at all the voices that are all the actual people, 90% of them.
Yeah, the actual actors from the.
Because this is Disney Plus. They're all under contract. I'm sure for part of me didn't think that they would bother with this silly animated show. But just from that, shows me they're trying to put as much effort into that as any of the other stuff. So.
First off, let's give it some context here, because the idea of a what if show is something that should be an impossibility for us to, if someone, when we were beginning this process of Marvel making these movies and shows and stuff, the one thing that was impossible, I believed this at the time, was what if. Because the reason that everybody thinks they're special, even me, but the reason we all say, but yeah, What If was my favorite series when I was, I had my ears, but I really liked What If. Yeah, everybody did. But it's like, the only way they had that series is because they had all these years of books to say what if happened in this world,
that they presume we're all familiar with. We all know the original stories like the back of our hand, so we can see these alternate versions.
Yeah,
and it all makes sense without having to go into any kind of backstory.
And
so that's impossible in the movie world.
You can't do it. Even if they start making movies, they're never going to be able to do what if. Not in the beginning there. We're not thinking 15 years later. But the fact that they were able to, for the last 13 years, lay this world down for us, and now they've actually can do that they laid enough down that the mainstream audience knows what that world is. and they can say, what if this happened in that universe? It's like, that blows my mind. It's another step of blowing my mind that they can do this, do a multiverse, do any of these things because of what they were able to lay down and incept into mainstream audiences. So that's what boggles my mind about it. That this was the furthest reaches of being able to actually pull something off and in this time frame.
Well,
so it's not based on the comics. This is all motion pictures,
And doing it in the animated form, I felt like was the best way to go with it.
It's the easiest way.
It's the easiest way to do it, and but giving us the actual voices behind, giving us the voices we know, made it. Even though some legit.
Of them, I mean, I have to say that not all these actors are great voice actors.
No.
They're not all pulling it off.
Some of them don't really even sound like themselves.
No.
Yeah.
Like I was surprised in the credits. Like, wait, that was actually him?
I would assume one reason could be that a lot of them were doing it over Zoom.
Yeah, I imagine they were. But it started off.
You should come down to Marietta College and learn how to do it right.
Exactly. Put some pants on.
Put on your pants. Come on down.
No, it started off super strong episode. My favorite so far. With the
See, now I'm the opposite. I feel like it has built over the
I
three
love
of it. I've liked. I haven't loved any of them, but I've liked them all.
Yeah, I really when the Peggy Carter ABC show was out, way back. I remember way back in the day, this podcast. I really enjoyed it. The whole series. Jarvelous. Yes, Jarvelous.
Jarvelous.
So it was nice to bring some of that back, and I always liked that period stuff, anyways. World War II era, and I thought it was
fun.
It was a ton of fun with the Hydra Buster and Peggy Carter back and better than ever. I thought it was the way to set the tone.
It was a good. I mean, that was a way to start it off. It was just like, what if this? And what did you think of that, Jordan?
Yeah, I definitely I've liked them all. I'm not bowled over, but that's fine. Like, it's not every Marvel show is the best thing that's ever been made. So just having a good quality show is good.
It was just a little light. I thought it was just like, so that episode specifically was just like, it was a little ambiguous. What exactly went wrong that they were, I was hoping for a more specific reason that she ended up instead of him. It was just like, biff, bam, pop, boom, there she's the one. Okay.
But I didn't even the concept art and stuff. I haven't really loved the animation.
See, that's
being super detailed and looking like everyone. Like, it's not very fluid, or the mouths don't really match up
when they stop and talk.
Yeah.
But I thought that first episode, like, some of the action was amazing, of flipping and the shield and the gunplay and the robot. Like, I didn't like the animation until it hit the action segments, and then it really soared. So
that whole, it's just the look of the animation bothers me a little bit. It reminds me a lot of that Star Wars. What was the little kid show? It only lasted like what was it?
Droids?
No. Just in the last few years, 2 or 3 years.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. Yes, Resistance. The animation reminded me a lot of that, and I did not like that. But like you said, now when they get into some of the action parts, it gets way better. But just, as a whole, and admittedly, I like that very Saturday morning cartoon 1980s style of animation. That's my preference. So this style always throws me off a little bit. We talked about when that Spider-Verse movie came out that everybody loved, and I could not get past that blurry animation look to it. So other than that, that's my only complaint about it, really.
Second episode.
Episode 2 was T'Challa picked up by the Ravagers and becomes the new Star-Lord.
T'Chaka.
And we get Chadwick
didn't
Boseman.
keep his eye on him.
Gotta keep your eye on your boy, T'Chaka. Chadwick Boseman recorded all the audio before he passed away, so that was a nice surprise to get more Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther.
Mm-hmm. And what a neat idea, that's definitely, it totally it makes him the character of Star-Lord, but it's a totally different Star-Lord. It's a respected Star-Lord who doesn't act like Peter Quill, and how that would affect the thing. So that was a little deeper episode there. I enjoyed.
Yeah, and the way they played with Thanos and Nebula was interesting.
Erin Gillen is amazing. For not being a Doctor Who fan, like her just watching her evolution as Nebula over these couple of movies, like I've really become a fan of her.
Totally agree. She was so much better the last couple of movies she was in. That character really was great.
Which a customer told me today they're rumored she might be Mara Jade in the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Like that.
Okay.
That's probably just pure fan speculation.
Yeah,
but I would be all for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So that was good. And then this latest episode was my favorite for obvious reasons.
This is Avengers history buff guy.
Yeah, and they, it's like going back to, back all the way back when they're trying to form the Avengers here in this universe.
Which again, speaking of the comics, that's such a pure what if kind of story. What if the Avengers never formed? Like that. That was like their bread and butter of like.
It's it's a mystery, and you don't know what's going on, who's killing off these Avengers in these ways that we're seeing it happen, but we don't know why it's happening. And of course, it's the perfect person to have done it. And I mean, the animation is sketch here and there. I like that they chose this style because at least it's something I like for the most part. But my favorite animation so far has been the Michael Douglas eyebrows. It's just like the way they took the Hank Pym character, and just like when he took that mask off, it's like that was some cool. He looked devilish, and and what just making. I want to know. What happened? What caused all this? In this timeline.
Yeah, it didn't give us all the
what
details.
happened to Hope and all that. And this is all has to be building to a crossover of all of these things.
This to me it just was an immediate, WandaVision, Loki, all of this multiverse stuff folding in on itself. Yeah.
I feel like, we will eventually see these storylines tie up in some way. They're trying to be single episodes of what if this, what if that, but it just feels like eventually somehow they're all going to tie together. So I'm like I said, for me, every episode has been good enough, and I like the latest one the best because I'm a Yellow Jacket fan, and I Michael Douglas fan too. So I like where it's going. I purposely am not looking. I don't want to know what the plots are of the next one. So I didn't know that this was what this was going to be, and it was a neat surprise. So I'm good with just letting them wash over me.
Yeah, I think I watched the trailer when it debuted and just didn't really go back and inspect.
Yeah.
Oh, what's gonna happen? What do you think Loki's doing here? Like, I don't need that. So.
Yeah. And the Bad Batch, that ended. This season.
Yeah.
So, and it was good.
It was
really good.
Yeah, it was really good. It gave us some kind of wrapping up that era of Star Wars. It was ever since 20 years or whatever ago, when the Phantom Menace came out, and then Attack of the Clones, giving us the answer to that question. What happened to the clones?
We'll get more. There's another. They're coming out with more, right? I mean, this isn't it.
It's confirmed. It's been renewed for season 2.
So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this gave us a big explanation of what happened to where they came from and the
Yeah.
people that made them.
And again, what a clever way of modernizing the clone thing to have the like trans clone,
right?
You know, and she's a really good character, and I'm enjoying it.
Was it all Palpatine's fault again?
Oh, it's Palpatine all along. Well, I haven't talked Big Brother. Jordan, you kept up on any of this? No.
Nope.
He checked out.
I did see they finally got rid of what's her name? Bridget? No.
Whitney? Brittany?
No. Brittany.
Yeah. Brittany, yeah.
After being on the block 7 times and not realizing why everyone was trying to get rid of her.
You sound like her. So, she thinks she was on there 7 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, her 3rd time on there, they finally got rid of her. But it all is according to plan. They all think that they have some agency in here, but the Cookout has always been the plan to put their person that doesn't know what's going on next to a Cookout member and sending them home. And
I missed how Derek X got out because I saw someone convinced he was gonna backdoor his actual target, and then someone convinced him that he needed to take a shot against Derek, I guess was what I gathered.
It was the girl that Sarah Beth had a household, and she probably wasn't necessarily going that direction, but Kyland really manipulated her into doing the exact same nominations he had done the week before, and thinks she's some mastermind, and she's probably going to go home this week. She's like had the worst HOH in forever. But I don't think people are a little, put out by this whole Cookout thing, but they're doing an amazing job. One of the best alliances is, even though they don't necessarily like each other as much as they like their friends that they've made in the house, they're sticking to it. And where other big alliances have dominated the game, they are dominated in a smart way where they're not even the ones that have been winning the things. Like their friends are winning it, and they're convincing them to put out the other people. It's just like, it's a lot of mind stuff, and I'm impressed by them. I mean, they don't even have to worry about going home. It's just like, go ahead and nominate me next to my friend because I know I have the votes and I'm going to stay. So they put in this twist where they make the same mistake. This is a huge thing that nobody understands. It happens almost every season, and production really tries to make excuses why they're right, but they're never right. People have their favorites. Obviously, Derek X was everyone's favorite person this season. He is so likable. He didn't know the game, but he was a natural at, he's a good athlete, and he also was, really good at making relationships and all of this. Everybody loved him, audience included. But what do? Production steps in, comes up with a thing where, okay, you're going to it's the Vegas theme, so roll the dice and you're going to get money and you get to spend it to try to earn powers and all this. So audience, vote for your favorites. Who do you want to give the most money to? What they should do is just come out and say, audience, who do you want to put a big target on?
Right, because that shows who's
right.
Being perceived as playing the game.
Yes, they secretly give them this money, but everyone in the house quickly finds out who they talk, and they figure out who has the most money, who's the favorite, and they send them home. So the audience is immediately ticked off because I told this lady at work, I was like, you know why he's going home? Because you called 10 times and gave him the money. It was like, that's how it works. And they gave the most money to Brittany and him, and he went home. Boom, boom. So that's how it works, people. They do it every year. And but the show always screws up, and then they try to save him. They give him chances. He didn't get the hint. Also, if you get the most money, another reason, usually you're the favorite for 2 reasons. You're likable and stuff, but you're the underdog. People love the underdog. So Tiffany's very likable and great and everything, but she's not the underdog, so people will start to not like her. But they give the money to him. If you are on the show and you get a bunch of money for one of these things, you ought to realize that you're in trouble and you need to spend it to try to get a power. And he tried to save it, so he left. That's basically what happened. Anyway, it's just coming down to the cookout. Tiffany won had a household this week, so I was happy about that. And it's I'm curious. I hope that she's able to pull it off. I think that she had the potential to be one of the best players we've seen in a while, and she handicapped herself by tying herself into this cookout. And I understand, because an African American has never won Big Brother in a quarter century of its existence. So anyone that's mad that all of them are banding together, they have to understand that they feel like this is the first time they've ever had the chance to do what has been done to them as the minority in the game all these years. So I hope they pull it off so one of them can win. And I hope that after she's handicapped herself, she can find a way to maneuver through, get rid of some of these guys, and be the best standing at the end. It's still good. I love it. Anybody else have anything they've been watching that they would like to tell about?
I was going to try to get through tonight without mentioning The Walking Dead, but...
Oh, I want my update. I have no idea how we left off.
Is back. For season 11. We have begun part 1 of the final stretch of finale episodes.
Okay.
There are 24 total episodes in this season, broken up into 3 flights of 8 episodes each. So it's the final season, but it's going to run through the end of 2022. So we're not anywhere near the end yet. So, so I wanted to check ratings, and it still said this has been the #1 series on basic cable for 12 straight years, with the main demographic 18 to 49 or whatever it is. So it's still huge and always has been, but the ratings are nowhere near what they were. So the ratings for this season's premiere were below last season's ratings, but almost identical to last season's finale. So basically, whoever's still on board, it's just a flat. It's just a flat line. We're not gaining. I'm guessing the last few episodes will jump up because I'm sure people will be curious. Come back and see how it ends. But for this final season, I think we've hit. Everyone who's bailed is bailed, and everyone who's been with it this long is going to stick with it. So I wouldn't expect too much spike in the ratings. And looking back at my notes, I've got notes like the last 7 episodes of season 10 that we never got to, but I don't even remember what half this stuff meant. So just to
give us
it was the Whisperer War. So this was Alpha and Beta. Who wear the masks, the dried, dead skin masks of the zombies. Basically got a giant horde together, the size we've never seen before, and aimed it at the town, and we're just gonna walk through and destroy everything in this town. So basically, Maggie came back right at the end, so she's been off the show for a couple seasons, so she was finally back. A group, Eugene got in contact with some people in West Virginia through his radio and took a small group up to, I think, Charleston to meet this group. They meet the princess on the way, so we've introduced the princess in the show.
Jeez, does she look just like her?
Yeah, she's got the purple fuzzy coat and everything. So they run into the Commonwealth soldiers, the stormtrooper looking guys,
right? At
the end. But the best episode at the end of season 10, Aaron and Father Gabriel are out on a supply run, and they run into this weird building, and there's like a noise behind this door, and they open up, and there's a boar inside. So they kill it and have dinner and eat fresh boar meat and this delicious meat. And then the guy who lived there showed up, who he'd been keeping that
is this a pig situation?
But it was Robert Patrick, I was like, yes, grizzled post-apocalyptic Robert Patrick. Yes, he's joining this show. And I said it was the biggest wasted opportunity in TV history to not have him say, have you seen this boar? They didn't do it. They ate his boar and then wasted it.
Wow.
But so he comes back and like has this grizzled, he takes him hostage and there's this whole thing. And they end up killing him off before the end of the episode. I was like, man, you wasted Robert Patrick. It was a good episode, but you really wasted him. And then they look around some more and find like pictures of a younger Robert Patrick, and he has a twin. And they find his twin brother upstairs, and there's another Robert Patrick. I'm like, yes, we can still have Robert Patrick. And he ends up dead by the end of the episode. I was like, you did it twice. You wasted this. So, stupid Walking Dead. But yeah, so episode 10 or season 10 ends them defeating the Whispers, getting Horde away, and getting all to safety. But there's casualties, of course, and the town, the walls have been knocked down. The towns were basically destroyed. So they're not in a good place here at the beginning of season 11. And the big conflict with Maggie coming back, she's automatically back in a kind of a leadership role, but Negan is also there. So he killed Glenn, the love of her life. So Negan has kind of been adopted. He helped stop the Whispers. He actually killed Alpha. So he's kind of become more accepted, but Maggie can never accept him back into this. So it's the tension between those two and kind of trying to figure out who these Commonwealth people are. Are they Eugene and his group, they've taken them captive and are they're asking him a bunch of questions and trying to see what's going on. So the end of this first episode, they run across a wall. It's very similar to the comics, but a little bit of a twist. It's a lot of like, have you seen this person? My missing brother, my missing kid. In the comics, Michonne finds a photo on that wall, and it becomes a huge plot point.
It was her daughter's or whatever.
Right. So Michonne is not even in the show anymore. So it was one of the other characters, Yumiko, I think her name is. She finds her brother has been looking for her all this time, and he's in the Commonwealth. So
they're gonna go do that storyline.
Yeah. So that's
you think it's gonna end like the comics? Everything is following it really closely.
There's no Carl anymore, so I'm guessing it'll all go to Judith to get to the very end, have kind of Judith be the center of attention. But yeah, they introduced these new villains, the Reavers or the Reapers or something. So I don't think they were ever in the comics. I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
But these, bad-looking dudes with a bunch of weapons and. I don't know. It's still going, and we can see the end at least. The end is at least in sight.
It feels like
this is gonna hurt. This is gonna hurt. Why The Last Man? It's just like it's gonna have to have some sort of apocalyptic feel to that show, and people are apocalypted out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a show about a virus and dealing with.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to be a hard sell.
We're already tired of that in real life.
So.
But I was going to say, it feels like forever ago since I've watched The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even remember where
I don't know. Actually, it feels like I just watched it right now. Storyteller.
All right. Well, that's all I've got.
Yeah,
for that stuff.
I did watch a few episodes of that season 2 of Modern Love on Prime. They had a first season a few years ago. I remember it was okay. Okay, it was just like different stories of just modern love, people in situations of just different kinds of, things, different relationships, how they differ from how, way it went in the past. I don't know. The second season's fine. It's just more examples of that. But people getting, trying to have a relationship during the pandemic, or people dealing with a loss of a loved one and how they hold on to them. And I think another episode I watched is just people who are on different schedules with, trying to match up. So neat little half-hour episodes that are, a little kind of light, but it's totally watchable.
And Michael was really upset with the return of Stargirl. They introduced a character named Zeke, who was like this crazy redneck character who became the Pat's new sidekick. So he's worried about Ronald P. Tramp copyright infringement.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
They're just ripping him out. They've been out. He shouldn't. They immediately bought that issue when it came out, Free Comic Book Day or whatever, and they rearranged the season, quickly filmed it.
That man has never had an idea that some Hollywood
that was
fat
bad
cat.
enough somebody wouldn't steal.
Yeah.
Immediately jumped all over it.
Always.
The golden goose.
Well,
the
I tell you,
F-boy.
SoProComics.com. See what Hollywood's going to take from us next. Most of the first issues are free to read on there if you want to check any of them.
Well, I tell you what, we were talking earlier tonight about some of those, about episode 300 coming up and kind of putting together another little clip show. And one thing I noticed as I was working on that this week was we got into a point where we were doing all these, like every episode was like 2 hours long.
You're telling me. I've been listeing to them. And they're great. I'll say they're great, but there's a lot of it.
But I feel like we're throwing it back a little bit tonight. And we're getting dangerously close to that 2 hour mark on this episode.
Really?
No way.
I don't think so. I guess maybe. First one was short. Huh?
Yeah.
All right, better wrap it up then.
All right. These pants are too tight. I gotta loosen them up. Get on out of here. My name is Jordan Lowe. We'll see you next time.
Cliff Barnes.
Seth, bye forever.
I'm glad you called, but I'm not home. But I'll be back before too long. You gotta
Crazy Calls, a tape of 7 different songs and funny recordings for only $14.95.
wait for the beat. You gotta leave your name. You gotta leave your number.
To order?
Wait for the beat.
Call 1-800-351-5200.
Ka-Pow, the Pop Cultured Podcast, is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Sounds, music, and clips played during the podcast are property of copyright holders. All original content is property of www.udownwithkpp.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a comment. Ka-Pow, the Pop Cultured Podcast, is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found. You can connect with us through social media on Facebook, YouTube, at the Ka-Pow Podcast on Twitter, or email the show, Ka-Pow, the Pop Cultured Podcast, @gmail.com. If you really want to go the extra mile, please sign up to be a patron through the Podbean app or our website, www.udownwithkpp.com, to receive special content and early access to some episodes. We are grateful to anyone that chooses to contribute, but please know that most of our content will always remain free, so please continue to like, comment, and share.